Hello, 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 folks. Welcome to the actual full official Mortal Content show. I'm really, really happy we get to have my friends Chris Carlton and Jay Wisniewski here to discuss TV. That's this month's theme. So, yeah, thanks, guys, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks for having
Glad
us.
to be here.
Yeah. All right, first, we're going to start with drinks, as we always do with every show. I'm going to start with Chris because he's got the boring drink, but go ahead.
I've got the boring drink because I'm currently in my classroom. So water it is. Can't report me.
We wouldn't anyway. Are we sure that's water in the bottle? But anyway. Jay, what do you have going on there as far as beverage?
I mean, I have a semi-boring drink. I'm over here with the it's filtering it. It's Athletic Light, NA.
Hey, we're fans of the NA, so that's cool. And the light, I don't think I've had that at the light. I've had a couple of their lighter fairs, but not the actual light lager that they made. So, what do you think of that one?
Oh, it's pretty good. I mean, compared to some of the more popular name brand lights out there, I actually like the flavor of this better. So.
All right, cool. Well, at least that's some flavors. So that's good because that's usually the thing that gets stumbled up with some of them. So, yeah. I'm going to do the Cult Bar, I drink themed cocktails. On Speakeasy Conversations, I have beer. So this is going to be my whiskey show. So I'm going to be drinking, of course, this is all getting blinded out by my little light there. Let's try a different approach. This is Dalwhinnie. This is a Highland Scotch. So this is 15-year aged. This is going to be a little smoother than my normal Islay fare, which is always peaty and smoky. So cheers to you guys. Again, thanks for being here.
Cheers. Unfortunately, I think we have to go now. Daniel just dropped a comment that episode 3 of Daredevil is live. So,
oh wow, we'll get to Daredevil, I believe, a little bit later. So, all right. So let's start with we're going to go on TV here. So let's start with what are we watching? So Jay, why don't you kick us off with what you're currently watching? The stuff that's filling up your TV.
Yeah, lately I feel like I've cut back a little bit and I'm focusing, really on things that are piquing my interest versus trying to dive into everything at once. So my top right now are Paradise. That's on Hulu, I believe, directly. Reacher season 3 over on Amazon. And oh man, what was the third one I told you guys? The Pit. Yeah, The Pit over on HBO Max. So it's tickling the old love of ER.
I'm with you there, Jay. I'm also a huge Pit fan.
Doug, I think you're muted.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I did actually mute myself because I had to cough. So, okay. Jay, why don't you tell us a little bit about, when we go back here to Paradise, what your thoughts on this are? What got you interested in this?
So I've really enjoyed Sterling K. Brown in a lot of different previous titles, whether he had a small role or a large role. I was a sap for This Is Us, if anybody's watched that. And then when I saw this kind of come up, the cast and with him being there, I was like, wow, this looks a little bit darker, more intense. It was nice to see him be in a lead role on there. So I went into it with an open mind, and I love the flow of the story so far. It's one of those, like, you think you know where it's going, but there's a lot of twists and turns in it. I think he's handling the role very well, especially coming off of This Is Us. I think almost perfectly cast for it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'll have some thoughts on Paradise. Well, I'll tell you now, I'm also watching Paradise. The thing that actually gets me with this is it's really well acted. You're right, the twists and turns are really cool, but like this takes place basically after an apocalyptic event where they're basically underground. So it's a bit like Silo in that respect, but not as dark. Like Silo is very dark. The whole thing is in the mood and the way it's lit and shot. So yeah, this is much more airy. They figured out a way to make it feel like there's sunshine and all that stuff down there, which I haven't really explored yet. So I'm curious if we're going to do that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this one. And Sterling K. Brown is awesome. So what about let's switch over to Reacher a bit. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna be a horrible person for this, and you guys can tell me if this opinion is wrong, right? So, like, we've been in the generation of modern time generation, right? So, if you start thinking about action movies or shoot 'em ups, the things that come to mind lately for me, and I absolutely love it. John Wick, right? You have the Keanu Reeves movies, you have some of the other stuff similar to that. And I think something that I absolutely love about Reacher, one, I already liked the backstories prior to Amazon getting into this. But Alan Richson, I feel like, is a modern day embodiment of what we used to get with the like big bulky Schwarzeneggers and John Claude Van Damme's. But so far, and fingers crossed, he's non-problematic. Everything I read says he's a good human being. Like he's into mental health causes and all that. But yeah, overall the show, same thing there. Like it's one of those every season you're getting a new story. It's one of the instead of carrying over and saying, "Oh, I had to wait a year and a half to figure out what happened on season 2." Season 3 right now is a whole new story, some familiar faces, but also bringing in new leads, and that's what I enjoy about it.
Yeah, I haven't. I watched season 1, but I never got to season 2 because I heard season 2 was kind of not really great. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on season 2 about that? Because that was just what I heard. That's why I never jumped into season 2.
Yeah, I'd say season 1 and season 3 so far are top notch for me. 2, there was kind of that lull, and I think maybe they were trying to figure out how to, again, to the point I made, how do we go into a second season that's not truly referencing or piggybacking off the first while keeping the viewers who know the story. So yeah, it wasn't as great. It's definitely watchable. It's not something that I feel you have to watch to even get into season 3 though.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of, like, remember Lost had such a great first season, and the second season was really like kind of what the fuck is this? Like it's going all over the place. And then I kind of found a footing with season 3. So you're saying Reacher is a bit more in that sort of realm, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. Chris, you haven't watched any of Reacher, right?
I watched season 1 and part of season 2. I really dig this guy. I've watched him in other things. He did Titans. He's done a lot of great stuff. My only worry with Reacher, especially with TV series, is when you have a main character who digs the backstory and the character so much that they are like, this is the way it should be done. I'm looking at you, Netflix, in The Witcher. Then it changes and it all goes. So as long as he's digging it and vibing it and keeping it where it needs to be, I love it. He's a big enough guy. I hope he can just like Hulk smash those executives who try and change things. But yeah, that's my only concern is when somebody loves the source material and the project so much, it's always the networks that get in there and monkey around with it.
Yeah, well, you're speaking to like The Witcher and all that sort of stuff, like just how that happened. I couldn't agree with you more. The other thing that's interesting is that apparently, like, I didn't read the books for Reacher, but this guy looks more like what Reacher did in the books and how he's supposed to be. And like, I remember they did a movie with Tom Cruise as Reacher. Everybody's like, what the hell are you doing, Tom Cruise, as this giant human? So I was like, I'm glad they're doing. Yeah. For those who missed, was on Speakeasy Conversations, Greg, when he was on that show, was playing a clip of Alan Richardson singing on American Idol and serenading Paula Abdul. That clip was wild. Okay, well, I think a lot of people would share your concerns there, Chris, but yeah. All right, so Jay and Chris, you both started watching this, as far as I understand. I have not watched any of this, and I would really like to hear what you guys think of it, because I hear nothing but good things. Chris?
Yeah, Chris, I'll let you take this one.
Right. First of all, I'm just going to state the obvious, and that is Noah Wyle is just so dreamy. I can't even. He was great on ER. He was
a baby in ER.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, as much as people are like, we don't need more medical shows. No, we need more medical shows like this. That at first I was skeptical. The wife and I watched a lot of YouTube doctors who were like, no, this is legit. And so we watched it. and man, we're hooked. The writing is great. The acting is great. It's set up to be like a full shift in the ER. So each episode picks up right where the last one left off, and it just runs with it. But the characters are great. But man, Max hit this out of the park. I hope they do 11 billion seasons and maybe convince George Clooney to guest spot or something. That would be great.
11 billion would be a great number. Jay, what are your thoughts on this from your perspective?
No, I think Chris put it well. It's one of those, as much as I have an obligation to watch certain sappy medical shows with my family that they like, Grey's Anatomy.
Ugh. Boo.
No, it's Chris. It's a saturated television market, right? When you think of primetime television, you have Grey's Anatomy, Station 19, Chicago Med. I mean, you could probably spout off tons of them that have come and gone. The first thing, of course, I looked at when I saw the trailer was like, oh, okay. This takes. I know I'm only 39, but it takes me back to ER. I remember loving that show when I was younger, and then I was like, okay. But do we need another medical show, to Chris's point? And then we gave the first one a shot and the second one. It really is like, especially having family members who work in the medical field who have talked down on other shows before, being like, yeah, that's how my day goes, or that's how my shift goes. And you get really drawn in to the stories of each character. Because as Chris mentioned, like the season 1, they're saying, here's hour 1 of the shift. Here's hour 2 on episode 2. Here's hour 3. And then they reference other things in real life, whether it be the COVID pandemic that happened. I want to say, Chris, keep me honest. I know we were talking about this in the pre-show, but there's a storyline that has to do with Mr. Rogers in there.
Wow.
So yeah, I think they've done really well so far from everything I've seen. And I hope that they just run with it. They give the writers and the cast the opportunity to keep going with what's giving them rave reviews, from my understanding.
Yeah, I also would like. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I interrupted.
My only request of the writers is they do too good of a job, like hitting you right in the heartstrings some weeks. And like, this is usually the last thing I watch before I go to bed. I don't need to be that in feeling with my emotions at any point throughout the day, especially before I'm going to sleep.
Ah, man. I would also like to say that I will never call it Max. I will always call it HBO or HBO Max, because I maintain that is the dumbest rebrand. Well, there's more dumber rebrandings if you want to look at a certain social media platform. But yeah, this was. Yeah, I'll have to give this a go. It's just one of those things. Like, I have, as an adult, there's a million options to watch things, so it's good to know that both you recommend this on top of all the other people I've said it. So I'm going to give it a go at some point. All right, next up, Chris, let's hear about the Pacific.
Okay, so I have watched Band of Brothers so many times. It's almost an obsession, right? If those gentlemen were still alive, they would all have restraining orders because I've watched it so many times. I realized after I went to New Orleans and went to the World War II Museum, I've never seen the Pacific. So I was like, oh, I'm sure it's probably as good. And I spent the whole weekend just binging it. I discovered 2 things while watching the Pacific. One, if I were a World War II soldier, send me to Europe any day. I can handle the cold and I can handle the French. I cannot handle the rain and the heat. I cannot. Hard pass. I also find myself like rooting for characters, and my other friends are like, it's history. You could just Google if they lived or not. I'm like, shh, I got to know if they make it through. And they're like, spoiler, they didn't. And I was like, great. I've just invested the whole hour, but it's really well done. But yeah, that whole viewpoint of the war, I was like, yeah, no. My wife jokes, she's like, yeah, you are of that age where you're not smoking meats, but man, there's always something World War II related on my TV, isn't there? And I was like, the last great war. It's the last. I mean, but it's appropriate, right? Day and age we're in. If you see a Nazi, it's your American choice to punch that Nazi in the face.
Agreed. Jay, I would like your opinion on this from the perspective of being a veteran, because veterans watching war kind of things is a little fraught. Do you enjoy movies or shows in this case that deal with like wartime things, especially where you're going to see war scenes?
It's hit or miss, and I think it comes back to the viewpoint of like if I were a doctor in watching The Pit or Grey's Anatomy, whereas I was enlisted and I'm watching these shows. I haven't specifically watched The Pacific, but I think it would be one that would draw my attention versus some of the other stuff that's out there. One of my absolute favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan, not to go off on a tangent. So like that doesn't bother me. There's some more modern ones, The Hurt Locker, things like that. But when they get into the sensationalism of it, I tend to prefer things that either have a historic viewpoint, or if we're going modern, it has some kind of true story or background to it. I mean, my nickname after basic training was Black Hawk Down because I had a seizure there. So,
oh, okay. Well, I think that would change the way you view that somehow.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, literally. All right. Well, I was just curious on that. Sorry if I put you on the spot for that. I just wanted to.
Oh, no, not at all.
So, okay. So the Pacific, another thing to check out. Add it to my list. All right. Next one. Here we go. All right, Chris, let her rip.
Okay. So full disclosure, this is by far, stop shaking your heads. This is by far a guilty pleasure, right? Because I've been married a long time, like pre-Civil War, I've been married. So at this point, watching these people who think it's a good idea to marry someone they've only ever talked through a wall on, man, that's wild. And you watch this the same reason you watch NASCAR. You're secretly hoping for a crash. You're like, come on, any minute now, someone's going to hit the wall. And then, this season, one of the guys was asked his feelings about Black Lives Matter because it was filmed in, I think, Minneapolis. And his response is, well, I mean, it doesn't really concern me, so I don't have an opinion. Yep. This season was not great. I do not. If you were like, oh, maybe that show sounds interesting, and man, Chris is selling it. Not this season. Go back a couple seasons; those are fine. This one is hot garbage. It's not good. It's really, really bad. So you can watch seasons 1 through 7. You'll be amused. Skip 8. Just skip right over it. It was not worth the time I had to spend.
I would like to say that all the other seasons are hot garbage too, but in a good way. This is hot garbage in a bad way, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it not redeemable at all.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I only caught bits and pieces of it. My wife watched it, so I just kind of would go in and out. Like it kind of lost its appeal like a season or two ago for me, so I just didn't sit and watch it with her. But yeah. Oh man. So I mean, we all have guilty pleasure shows like this. There's one that I'm watching that I think is super goofy. It's called Extraction, on where basically it's like they take people, they try to do the thing of the show Alone, which is a great show to watch, but basically they send people who are not trained to be out surviving, and their families are in this other studio, and they get to send them things like it's the Hunger Games, like little packages, and it's bad, but it's goofily entertaining. So like I it's on Hulu because so if you ever want to watch that, I didn't put that as something I'm watching because like it's something just like Jill and I will put it on when we're watching like we're eating dinner and just putting on something dumb, so mindless. But we all have guilty pleasures there. Jay, is there a guilty pleasure kind of reality show thing you watch?
Reality show? I feel weird. The only reality shows that I find myself watching, and it's not constant, is cooking shows. I don't really watch reality shows. I feel like I'm stuck back in the day of the Real World. Nothing piques my interest since the Real World and Road Rules.
Well, yeah. I was going to make a comment that was going to be political, but I'll leave that one alone.
No, I just they don't. They said, what did I was amazed the other day. I saw what's fucking Survivor's still going. I'm like,
Yeah,
how long
season
is this going to
48
keep
or some
going?
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
48 or something ridiculous like that.
And I mean, kudos if that's something somebody enjoys. Great. I don't. I'll have to check out Love Is Blind though. Maybe it'll be something that I can throw on in the background.
We will not have Survivor slander. We will not have Survivor slander.
We weren't slandering it. We were saying that it was on for forever, just a long ago. It's
Yeah, man. It's like
the
running
Simpsons
as long as
every-
The Simpsons. It's going to
Yeah,
out survive
Simpsons every
humanity.
Yeah. All right, let's see what's next. It's on this. All right, here we go, man. Both of you, I think. Both of you have seen this. I have not.
Oh, so here's the thing. The Netflix seasons, I must say it, I'm looking at the comments. We, as adults, can admit that not all of the Netflix seasons were of the same level of quality. Was Daredevil Netflix's best Marvel show? By far, right? Absolutely. It was great. Punisher, I would argue, could be a close 2. Jessica Jones is up there because
Yeah, that's the one I would have picked, Jessica Jones.
But this is great. Disney did not Disneyfy this. Like, it is just as violent as the Netflix shows. It is great to see these characters back in. I need to go buy. If anyone would like to donate so I can go buy an all-white Wilson Fisk suit, I'm down. I will wear it constantly. D'Onofrio is a bad man as Kingpin. But oh yeah, and the Punisher is supposed to come back too, both this season as a standalone. Yeah, no, it's really well done. The writing's good. There's some controversial decisions that had TikTok and people all their collective underoos and a bunch I'm not going to talk about because it came out last week. But yeah, no, it's really good stuff.
Your thoughts, Jay, if you've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen the first 2 episodes. Like I said, I was going to dip on you for 3, but that wouldn't be professional. Same thing. I was a big fan of Jessica Jones. Daredevil was like, okay to me. It wasn't the acting. It was just, okay, the story writers and the storyline. So when we got a glimpse of this trailer, I was like, okay, maybe they're going there. And again, without dropping spoilers, just from the first 2 episodes, it hits hard, and they're coming with a very solid story. I think it beyond that, to the extent that like my oldest never watched any of the Netflix spinoffs, and they came out while I was mid episode, and they're like, "Did such and such just say that? That's sacrilege!" Like they were just taken. Like, I have to watch this show now, and I was like, yeah, you heard that. So yeah, very interested to see where they keep going with it. And then, yeah, John Bernthal, I want to say, commented recently that because of this, he's basically been told that, the Punisher is going to get the storyline and the darkness he's always deserved. So it's nice to see Disney step back and say, okay, maybe we can do some of that. Without it also having to be comedy, right? Because we saw Deadpool go R-rated, but we knew Deadpool had that shtick to it. It's nice to see them actually go back to the source material on some of these characters and realize, hey, not every comic book character was meant for a child.
What are your guys' thoughts on Luke Cage? Because I liked that first season quite a bit. Now, I think there was a second season. I think that kind of went off the rails. But like, what are your thoughts on that one as far as Marvel content?
I loved the actor who played Luke Cage. He was a perfect Luke Cage. If you look at the star power they had in the first season, right? It was set up to be like, this is amazing. But I feel like halfway through, they stumbled the ball and didn't quite know how to finish it. They tried to do too many comic nods with his comic accurate, weird fro and crown and yellow. It was a whole thing. Like, it's not necessary. Was it still better than Iron Fist? I think Jay flying across the room and kicking me in my testicles is better than Iron Fist. That was bad. That was really bad. And that's where the whole thing just veered downward for the Netflix shows. But yeah, no, Luke Cage, really well done. A really nice partnership with Jessica Jones, which if you're a comic person, that needs to make sense. but their banter back and forth was really good. But yeah, we just don't talk about Iron Fist.
Okay. We don't talk about Bruno either, apparently. But I wanted to make one point about Jessica Jones as a side tangent. I think David Tennant's villain in Jessica Jones was one of the fucking best villains of any Marvel thing I've seen. He played such a good role in that, and he's usually not the villain type. That's why it was like kind of surprising to see him do it. So,
yeah, definitely. He's part of what hooked me on that show. Like the way he came in and played that villain.
Yeah, he was good. So anyway, Marvel, that could be a whole other show, but let's so keep it moving here a little bit. All right, so Severance, baby. This is my favorite show right now. I absolutely love this show, and this season, like season 1 was great. The way what they're doing with season 2 is just like really blowing my mind. Like there's 8 episodes so far. The episode 7 of this season, one of the best episodes of a show I've seen in a couple of years. Like it just hit me in just all kinds of feelings to the point that I was like I actually was a little bit tearing up and crying, and I had to go give my wife a hug afterwards. And like, that was just like a really heartfelt and good episode. And so, yeah. Have either of you watched Severance? I think Chris said, did you not? Oh, Chris said you didn't. So Jay?
I have not yet. It is on my list. I've just had too much going on.
Yeah, you do, but I understand that. But I'm just saying, when you get a chance, this is just a superb show. If you want to talk about a show that's filmed and shot extraordinarily well, nothing beats this show. Like they don't do CGI. Like they just do they do camera tricks to make everything look like it's CGI.
Is this the one that I saw the clip that went viral within like the last week or so that showed like the flip in the camera line, and they were like,
yes.
No CGI here, one shot. Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yep, it is. The person that does the photography of that is phenomenal. And Ben Stiller is a guy who is kind of the head of the show, which is just really interesting in that, he's kind of known for like comedy stuff. This does have some humorous small bits, but it's like little interjections of humor, but it's really, really super good. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. It's just every episode you're just afterwards like, Jesus. For both of you, one of the coolest things that they did in the first season was there is a romantic storyline between John Turturro's character and Christopher Walken's character, and it is the sweetest fucking storyline. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's really sweet. So put those two guys in a room together and make them a romantic couple, and that's just not something I was expecting out of that show. So good. So yeah, that's like my number one thing to watch right now. And also I'm watching this great, Jay, to your point about cooking shows, Tournament Champion
Town.
Yeah. Now I don't give a shit about Guy Fieri, but on Speakeasy Conversations back when it was Brothers and Booze, we actually had one of the contestants on from that show, Leanne Wong. We had her on, and she's a quote unquote celebrity chef. So I always watch it. She's in it this year, so we're always rooting for her. So yeah, that's what I am watching, along with, as you talked about with Paradise. I watched that as well. So, oh man. So yeah, we went through a half hour just ripping on things. That's the thing. There's so much content. There's so many things you could watch. It's like feels like you're just never gonna catch up. Like at least that's how I feel. You guys feel that way? I feel like it's just too much to watch.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's very weird. I think we're going to segue into it later, but like nobody has made the exact decision on what they want to do. It's either like, hey, here's this show and you've got 8 to 12 episodes all at once, or hey, there's this show and we're going to do it weekly. And you're trying to space it out between things are coming back or that have been on a break, and you start losing track of stuff. I can't tell you the amount of times I'll go into like the My Stuff list on Hulu or HBO and be like, okay, when are you coming back? Is there any kind of noise? Because there's just so much out there to consume.
Yeah, I mean, this will get us, as I said, we got the little crawler on that. Just jump into the topic: binge watching versus appointment television. So, I I will say personally, I am not a person who binge watches stuff. I don't have. I get too antsy. I can't sit still that long. So I feel like it's that stupid. I need to be productive at all times. Kind of dumb mindset that I got drilled into my head as a kid. So how do you guys feel? What are you? Yeah, I'm with you. I hated that too. I still hate it. I can't get rid of it. So what do you got? Are you binge watchers? Are you appointment television? Are you a hybrid? What works for you guys?
So it really depends on the show. I know right now The Pit has new episodes that drop on Thursday. The wife and I just finished watching the last season of School Spirits, which was also Thursday. Daredevil is Tuesday. So like we're kind of that appointment where I don't mind it. And I do miss appointment. Like I miss if you missed it on TV, if you weren't there watching it, you were screwed. You had to find out the next day, and I'm old enough. I'm like pre-DVR. If you just missed it, you missed it, right? I saw it. You didn't. Ha 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 ha. I'm going to talk about it anyway, right? So I do miss that because that was, I'm going to sound horrible, but a lot of my better childhood memories were we would find a show to watch as a family when I lived at home, and we would watch that and we would talk about it. And sometimes we're like, man, this is great. Or like, you are totally that character, right? And you're like, all right. But then like the Pacific, I can binge that. I can just, and it's there and it's just easily digestible. And it just depends on my mood. I miss appointment viewing. I miss that. It's one time we sit, we do it. And if you missed it, you missed it.
Fucking Zach comes in the chat. Here we go. Here's where it gets fun, guys. Jay, what are your thoughts? Binge watching versus like the appointment television kind of?
So I'm hybrid on it, and like I think it's great. We do have a few shows that like the kids, and now I should say the young adults, will actually be like, hey, can we watch that? And so we make sure to kind of like do a weekly thing with it, even if they drop them all at once. But I think I'm more hybrid in the sense is going back to like you said, Doug, there's just so much out there. Like I'm like, okay, I'm paying for Hulu, I'm paying for Disney Plus, I'm paying for Max, I've got Peacock, Paramount, blah, blah, blah. So an example would be I fell in love with Mayfair Witches during the first season. And like that one, I'm like, there's not much that I actually need on AMC Plus throughout the year. So I canceled the thing. And guess what? When I realized all the episodes for the second season were up, I paid the $9.99 and I binge watched it because it was only like 8 episodes in a season. But I'm also like you, Doug, in the sense that whether I'm consuming television or books, I don't know. I just go back to like the teachers that I love that were like, take time to stop after you've consumed it and digest it, think about it, really let it go through your mind. And I think sometimes when you're binge watching, you get to that point where you're like, oh, I started the show an hour ago. Oh, wait, never mind. It's midnight and I'm 4 episodes deep out of an 8 episode season. So are you really getting the full experience and enjoyment? Or are you just, mindlessly like, okay, this is me in my downtime after work. I'm shutting off the world.
Yeah, there's not a lot that I sit and can just binge watch. There's been a handful of things. I remember the first season of American Horror Story. My wife and I watched that on a Saturday once. Okay, Zach. No one's like Douglas. Okay. Anyway, for me, I like being able to do all right, I know this is coming out this day, and there's like a looking forward to it piece to it that I really enjoy. And I think this kind of really cemented for me was when Lost came out. When Lost came out, you had to be glued to the TV, or you had to have a VCR ready to record it because, you didn't have DVR yet, or maybe you did by the end of it. I don't remember. But like, and if you missed it, you were just like, shit, how do I catch up? And there wasn't social media like there is now. Like, so you just really were like, oh, well, I guess I'm SOL. And you try to get one of your friends to try to update with you. And, there was some social media in that with Lost, and that they were kind of but they didn't really use social media. It's more like they put out like web links to kind of build lore behind it. You remember that shit where they would be like, look at this website. And you'd be like, oh, and I look and I check all these things. And like, that shit was fun. That's, we don't get a lot of that anymore. the other thing with like Game of Thrones is like that too, where it's like you knew you had to be. Now that was a little different. You could DVR it and all that stuff, and you could catch up. But man, I just remember being like, all right, it's 9:00 on Sunday. Got to be in front of the TV because Game of Thrones is on. I like that.
Yeah, and that's the most recent one that comes to my mind because at the time I wasn't watching it, but I remember like going into work, it was, oh, you didn't watch that? Well, F you, you're going to hear the spoilers over the cubicles because people are like, oh my God, did you watch that? It doesn't matter if you're avoiding us on Twitter or Facebook. Everybody's talking about this show. You don't have a lot of that anymore.
Now, see, I'm fortunate because how my teacher coworkers and I, we start the day before we let the children in, is we'll sit right by the door so we can look at them outside and discuss all the TV we've watched. So, like, if Love is Blind is on, that's the topic of our conversation. When Fall of the House of Usher hit Netflix, we're all over that. I'm trying to convince them to jump on the From train on MGM Plus so that we can all talk about that. But, you know, that community of not just the internet, but like actual people, you're like, are you watching this? And those who are excited with you, like, that's really what I miss about appointment TV. Like you had to see it. You had to, you know, I didn't watch it. Well, bummer.
Yeah. I watched the first season and I just, because it's on a platform I don't have, like, I just haven't seen the rest of it, and I really would like to, but yeah, From first season was excellent. So, yeah, the appointment TV, it's just funny. Like, we have certain people that we know and love who are binge watchers and wait until an entire season's ready to go so they can watch it, so they can sit and they can just kind of plow through it. And you know, that's a way to do it. A lot of people love that. There's also that weird thing where some shows will put like 3 or 4 episodes out at once, and then you're waiting. Like Love is Blind does that, where it drops 4 episodes or whatever, 6 episodes, and then you wait a week or two, and then all of a sudden they drop a whole bunch more. And it's like, I guess that kind of satisfies a little bit of both in a way, maybe. I don't know. Just a thought on that.
I'm gonna get some massive hate from the chat. Like, I watch Demon Slayer. I love Demon Slayer, but not like I'm gonna watch it in Japanese. Love it. Like, I'm not that committed. So I will wait for the whole season to come to Netflix so I can watch the English dub version, which I'm just gonna be like, how can you do that? But when I can go, that I will watch just so because they're 20-minute episodes. I'm not waiting a week for 20 minutes. Like, there's so many jokes there. I'm waiting for one of you or Greg to just die laughing from that. But
Greg threw a joke in, but
she's not waiting a week for 20 seconds. But hey,
yeah. Well, Demon Slayer is like that. Is, you know, that's the anime style stuff, and like my kids are all into that. So, and anime is not a style of cartoon show that I dig, but it's just that's my preference. So, but. Yeah, the one thing that my one son was telling me about this show called One Piece, where there's like 1,000 episodes. It was like, what? How is there 1,000 episodes of anything? Like, but yeah, he was saying like there'd be like 6 episodes would just be one fight scene, and I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, he said the fight scenes are great, and then there'll be like 20 episodes of filler, and I'm like, ugh, yeah. So anyway, anime stuff. I'm going to have to maybe do an anime show for this and then just have people who know anime, because I know jack shit about anime. So, oh, here we go. Daniel. I don't know. Have you guys seen any of these? Demon Slayer, Bleach. I've never heard of Bleach. New Gundam series and Solo Leveling. I've never heard of that one either.
I read the Demon Slayer, the actual books, so I'm waiting. The movie is coming, I think September, I think is when I saw the US drop of the movie, and that I believe is the end of it. So I'm not sure how they're going to fit all that in one movie, but good luck to them. They're able to knock it out of the park.
Yeah. And then Daniel's only on the 400s for One Piece. My God. I think if I saw 1,000, I would just be like, no, I'm not doing that. That's commitment.
I sit down to watch Criminal Minds because I'm like, oh, this show seems interesting. And my wife's like, no. And I'm like, what? There can't be that many.
Oh, there is.
Well, and I was like, how long has this show been on?
A long time. Okay, so another one's asked about Robotech. I don't know that one either. So, any of you heard of that? Seen that? Because I have never heard of that myself. So,
I've heard of it. I've not watched it.
No, I think the last anime I fully watched through was Attack on Titan, and I haven't watched anything since then.
That was very big in my house for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dig into something a little bit different now. So we're talking a bit about, appointment TV and all that, and we talked about shows we were watching right now. What about things that are retro shows that you like, or maybe like what I hear a lot from like my kids and even my wife is like these things called comfort shows, where it's just basically they watch it or they just put it on the background or something they've watched over and over and over again. Are there any of those sort of things for you guys? Chris?
Oh, yes. So it depends on the mood, right? If I'm an Aaron Sorkin guy, so throw on the West Wing even in the background, and I'm just, because the dialogue is so smart and so fast. Like, man, my brain just loves hearing that. I'm also a fan of Studio 60 that he did that only got one season, which is Criminal. I still hate see for that. But those are my smart shows. I'm also, my wife and I have watched Gilmore Girls a ridiculous amount of times because, again, the writing is fast and it's smart. So, like, Lauren Graham is pretty great, too. So we've watched that. If I need to laugh, I'll dig out the DVDs. Christopher Titus had a series on Fox, and my dad and I would watch that. And we laughed. So that was one of the first things I can ever remember, like, one of his stand-up came on, and my dad and I literally stayed up late, and we were in tears, just laughing so hard. So, like, that show, my little teeny tiny heart, it pulls the heartstrings, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and my comfort shows are also shows they could never make anymore. Right? I'll go find old episodes of All in the Family and Married with Children because I know there's no way, even on YouTube, someone's going to pull that off. Right, that's too many buttons for too many people.
Yeah, I'm not sure those could be made today. I mean, it could probably be made on a streaming platform, but with a lot of feedback on it, I'm sure. So, Jay, what about you, man? What you have there?
I mean, I have a few shows and a few movies that I consider, fallbacks or comfort zones. One of my big ones, which is actually relatively recent, I think it ran 07 to like 14 or 15, was Californication with David Duchovny. That one in there, he's the author and teacher, and it's a similar thing. It was on Showtime, but I struggle to see if they would actually let him make that show nowadays. At least in the form that it was released in back then. But that's when, every so often I'll just be like, hey, I want to go back and rewatch that again. And then on the geeky side of things, I think, Chris, it was you earlier who mentioned, back when it was scheduled television, families would sit around the TV. But one of the rare shows that I actually remember all of us sitting down and watching, even with my dad, was Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like, I always knew every week we were going to sit down and watch that damn show as a family, and like I was invested in it. Like, so that's another one that it's on the streaming services, and I'll go back and watch it. Make it so Earl Grey. And then for movies, I have some of like the cheesiest ones out there. Like, I don't know why, but I will constantly at any given moment, just if we're sitting there and there's nothing that's truly piquing my interest, I will throw on The Perfect Storm. I don't know why I love that movie. It's a comfort movie for me. It's not like I've been out fishing deep sea or anything, but it's got horrible accents. Yeah, I'm sure. But like it's just the most random thing. Like, it is so funny because I've watched it so much. The kids will sit down if I've got it on. Like, everybody just gets invested in it, even though they're like, well, this is like 10,000th time you're playing it. Like, I'm surprised that my family can't quote it verbatim.
Maybe they can. They just don't want to because they're afraid they'll force you to go watch it again.
He's gonna play it again. Damn it!
No, don't say anything.
True, Marky Mark.
Well, lots to be said about that guy, but maybe they are traumatized. That's possible.
It's probably true. Yeah, I probably traumatized them with a bunch of Marky Mark and deep sea tuna fishing.
And trauma bonding with your kids over a movie where multiple people die. So yeah, there's that. All right, so I will confess, I am not a person that rewatches things very often. I am not a person who does that hardly at all. It is rare that I will just go, yeah, I'm going to rewatch this. The handful of things that do that, I'll do movies super quick because movies are really quick and easy and getting it out. Any Bourne movie, any Jason Bourne movie, if it's on, I'm fucking watching it. I just crack for me. I don't know why. Like John Wick movies are like that too. I can jump in anytime and good to go. Hoosiers, because I'm a basketball nerd, and Anchorman because a million quotes. So those are movies that, like, if they're on, I'll watch them. Like, shows. The shows I rewatch are largely pretty dark. Like The Expanse. That's not super dark, but that's the best sci-fi show I've ever watched in my life, and it's just super well acted and super well done. I will pick and choose which episodes to rewatch of Black Mirror. I fucking love Black Mirror. Black Mirror is a great show. That is not a happy show to watch. There's all sorts of dark shit that goes on in there. Then also the X-Files, because there's 20 seasons. So you could just pick up wherever and watch episodes, and they're loosely connected, but they're not like you have to watch all of them in order, which is kind of nice. And if I'm going to watch something funny, and this is a bit of a deep cut, but MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. Have you guys ever watched that show?
Yes.
Jay?
Yeah.
That show fucking kills me every fucking time I watch it. It is the best part about it, Chris. If you've never watched it, what it is, it's an old Japanese game show where people do weird shit, but these guys do American dubs into it and just say the most fucked up stuff you could think of, and it's fucking hilarious. Just like I'm thinking of just some of the things they say in there, and I'm just giggling. I remember when they used to play it on the FX network way back, and my friend Floyd and I would be on the phone talking while the show was on, and just laughing our asses off so much that we missed like half the show because they would say something so outlandish and funny, and we would just be cracking the fuck up, and then it'd be like, "What'd they just say?" I don't know. I completely missed it, and yeah, so. That show, I don't know. That's just dumb fucking shows that I could just watch forever. I cannot recommend that enough, Chris. If you have Prime, you can buy it because they have, I think, seasons 1 through 3. I think there was like 5 or 6 seasons. But man, that show is awesome. I just, like I said, it's weird that I just don't like rewatch a lot of things. Like my wife will watch a lot of things. She actually, she did just finish the Mayfair Witches, Jay. So I know you were like that, and I popped in just because Alexander Daddario's in it, and yeah. But so yes, that was the only reason I watched that. But my wife likes all those period pieces. Like, do you guys get into that sort of the period pieces, like the Peaky Blinders kind of stuff and shit like that? Do you guys like that? That is not in my wheelhouse at all.
Yeah, I've had somebody try to get me into Peaky Blinders. I still haven't watched that. I think somebody else recommended like Boardwalk Empire. I never watched that.
My wife's watched that.
And I think the reason I'm just drawn to Mayfair Witches and the vampire series as well is essentially on the horror side of things, the whole Anne Rice side of things. It just so happens to be in that period. So.
Mm-hmm. There's also a new one on Hulu called 1,000 Blows or something like that. That's part of, I don't know if it's part of the Peaky Blinders universe or done by people who did Peaky Blinders. So you were saying, Chris? Sorry.
Tried Peaky Blinders. I think I made it like 3 or 4 episodes in, and the accents were killing me. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. Boardwalk Empire, I made it through like the first season, and I was like, all right. The fact that Michael Shannon always looks like he's about 3.5 seconds away from having a stroke makes it a little unwatchable for me. He just seems very intense, very, very intense. But like, if you give me The Sopranos, I'll watch that. I could watch that over and over again.
Never.
I've never watched it either.
Never, nor will I. Explain to me why I should.
Okay, so obviously, if you go into it thinking like it's just like another cheesy gangster thing, it's not. It's another. The Sopranos is another really good dialogue show. Like the dialogue isn't as fast as an Aaron Sorkin show, but it's smart. Like the character development's there. Like because like Tony in the first couple seasons is not redeemable at all. You're just like, this dude, right? Come on. But then by the end, you're like, oh, he's had some emotional growth. And his wife, I mean, she hates him a little less, and the kids don't hate him as much. And then fade to black, and you're like, for real? But Gandolfini and like the relationship between like the main characters and their acting is just really good. The behind the scenes stuff of like Gandolfini would take it really hard when he'd have to be like more violent to the cast members, especially Carmela, his wife. Like he would feel that. And so David Chase is like, dude, we'd have to talk him down because he would be emotionally distraught. Like, why do I need to do this? It's good. Not all the seasons are bangers, but there's enough good episodes in every season where you're like, okay, it's not super long. I mean, it's basically a modern Godfather, not Godfather 3, but the first Godfather. It's good, right?
I'm gonna do this Family Guy. I didn't think the Godfather was that good. Did you ever see that clip of the Family Guy where he's like, they're drowning and he's like, I have a confession. I didn't think the Godfather was that good. And the family like freaks out on him.
See, when it comes to like mobster movies, I'd take the Godfather over. I'm going to wait for it. I'd take the Godfather over like, what's the one with Ray Liotta, the annoying one?
Oh, Goodfellas.
Yeah, Goodfellas is like 8 hours too long. Like you had such a good movie and you just dragged it on. Godfather is great. Casino. How do you not love Joe Pesci? That's just brilliant. I mean, every now and then a good gangster flick is wonderful. The Untouchables. I mean, come on, who can't watch The Untouchables? Come on, Chad, help me out here, please. Sean Connery and a baby-faced Andy Garcia and Kevin Costner are all the best reasons to watch The Untouchables.
I mean, chat has pretty much been agreeing with you. It's me and Doug that are like, no, fuck that.
No, Sean Connery, it's outside of Bond, The Untouchables is such peak Connery. Like he's just smooth as ice in that flick. He's just great. Right? He has some great one-liners.
Pete Connery is The Rock.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I was going to argue that
with one-liners at least, but yeah. I will say, I don't know if you feel the same way, Jay, but like, I am not a person who likes mobster, organized crime kind of shows or movies. It's just really not my thing. Craig, the thing about mobster is, and yes, okay. And hey, I got someone who agrees with me. Thank you, Zach. Yes. Losers always whine about their best. So, Jay, are you on that same corner as far as mobster organized crime things, or do you like some of it? It's just some of them doesn't hit right.
I mean, some of them I've watched just because, like, growing up, I didn't have a choice. But not to get too familial, but like my great grandpa, who I actually knew and lived to be like 104, immigrated from Sicily. So like I grew up hearing those stories of like the mafia pre-America and like how detrimental it was to them over there. So like to me, I'm just like I don't really care. I don't want to watch it. And I know it's entertainment or historical, but it doesn't appeal to me. Like I'll see something come on and I'm like, no.
Oh, we have to get this one up. Are you ready? Chris's face just dropped when Zach dropped his comment. Mob movies are for hetero thick skulls that love football.
Michigan football.
Oh my God. Zach just like oh my God. You know what's sad about just to all right, the mob things. One show that I probably should watch that I keep hearing about that I really should watch is The Wire. I have never watched The Wire. It's written by David Simon, who's an incredibly smart writer, but I have never watched it. Have either of you seen that one? No?
Yes, I've started The Wire. But what's funny is same as you, I hadn't watched it or even really put it on my radar till recently. I want to say last year I started it, but it's another one that like I stopped because my more important shows in my playlist came back. So,
all right. Apparently, someone's commenting as me here. That's not necessarily a mob story. It's just it's drug dealing in inner city Baltimore. So yeah, as far as I know. Apparently, did I make an enemy today? Yes, you did. Apparently, it's the mob. So good luck, Zach.
Come on, man.
Anyway, all right. So another thing that we could go on about that forever. So let's do something that this was a question that we collectively thought was a good idea to talk about, which is, I think it is. It's what makes or breaks a sequel or spinoff show, because there's a fucking million of them. So when you see a spinoff or a sequel, what about that? What makes it hit for you? And do you have examples? Because there's so many, and my brain is like Swiss cheesing it right now, and I'm not remembering any. But Jay.
Well, before I bring that up, I just got a message from Aubrey in New York, and she told me to tell you, Doug, that she's at the Vestal Walmart if you want to come say hello.
She is like 5 miles, not even like 3 miles from my house.
Okay, so back on topic anyways. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on it, right? So I feel like when I was younger and we would see that stuff, it wasn't necessarily like a true sequel or spinoff. To your point, you brought up X-Files earlier, right? So X-Files would end and then the fans would be like, oh my God, they'd bring it back. Do we bring back the original characters? Do we try to spin new people there? And I feel like even when they had some of the original showrunners in there, it just didn't work. And then the thing that drives me nuts nowadays, I'm going to bring it up again. I mentioned the show and I made you gag at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So Grey's Anatomy, right? Shonda Rhimes has built this fucking powerhouse studio. Like now she went from being affiliated with ABC, where everything was Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice and Station 19, and where everything was coming together like the Chicago 1 series was, to now she's on Netflix. And I'm like, that's great if you're a fan of that type of producer or that writer. But like, at what point, I don't know, if it were me and I were Shonda, at what point am I like, okay, I have this great idea, but it's not from the Grey's universe? Like, I feel, I don't know if you get what I'm saying there. Like, so some shows genuinely deserve either a comeback or a spinoff. I think, to Chris's point, I really enjoyed it. Was like the short mini series they brought back Gilmore Girls, right? And they did it well. It worked there. Whereas some of the X-Files stuff, it didn't work. Do we need 15 different Grey's Anatomies? No, I don't think we do. It's also a show I think that has outlived itself, So those kind of things. Whereas I feel like it's done okay when you have somebody like Martin, who's written his novels, and you have that whole universe of Game of Thrones where, one show has essentially ended. We're going to focus on a new story. So that's technically either a prequel or sequel or spinoff. But I feel like the networks or the bigwigs there, like once they feel like, hey, we struck lightning, just keep doing that. And you're not really seeing anything new.
Yeah, there is that. I would like to make a point that there was a spinoff of the X-Files, and it was called The Four Horsemen. It lasted one season.
Yep.
That show was fun. Like, it was fun. It was not X-Files. It was way more campy and silly than it. Now, X-Files had its silly and campy moments, but The Four Horsemen guys, those characters were fucking great. It just only lasted one season because not enough people watched it. So it's just one of those things. That was one of the things where they were like, let's spin this off and let's do something that's adjacent, but we're going to make it more funny and we're going to do something different. They took a chance with it. And, it didn't work for like viewership. I thought that show was fucking hilarious, but like, yeah.
I mean, okay, but we know that there are spinoffs that do work, right?
Sure.
Like Breaking Bad was great. I know people who would argue Better Call Saul was better, right? As a spinoff. For example, I loved All in the Family, but if they wouldn't have spun off and did the Jeffersons, I can't imagine my life without the Jeffersons as a very impressionable child. Right? So that was a spinoff that worked. So, I mean, but there are some that are bad, right? You took perfectly good Buffy off the WB. Love you, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Call me. It's fine. Message.
Rest in peace, Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, broke my heart. And then you took the worst part of that show, the thing that was dating my girlfriend, and gave him his own spinoff, Angel. So that's just unforgivable. And there's so many reasons it's bad, starting with Joss Whedon and David Rands and whatever his name. I just can't. It was bad. It's just, yeah, no, not everything needs a spinoff. Not normal.
We're forgetting the worst spinoff in history, and that was Joey.
Oh, yeah.
Spinoff
We didn't need this.
That show is fucking awful.
Yeah. And I can even think of modern ones that like spawn from there are shows that I've originally been like, I'm not giving that a chance. I don't feel like it's for me. And I'll call out one that Chris got me to watch. For the longest time, I avoided the hell out of Yellowstone. I was like, I feel like, not to get overly political, this is aimed at a certain crowd of people, and that people ain't me. And then I watched it and I was like, I kind of like this. But then they're like, here's the three prequels from like 19 whatever and 1980. And I'm like, I don't feel the need to watch that. And I just saw an article the other day that was like, the only person winning in network television in Hollywood right now is Tyler Sheridan, who writes those shows. And besides Yellowstone, the only thing I've given a chance is Landman. That's another one. Like, I'm not in it for Tyler Sheridan. I just, for some reason, fell in love with the storyline of that show. So he's probably got 4 or 5 things out there that are considered prequels or spinoffs that I don't give a damn about. I don't feel that they're necessary. I felt that the show wrapped up the story well. And then there's other stuff that, like, yeah, I'm like, cool, let's do something with it. Let's bring back comfort shows. I am an avid fan of One Tree Hill. Right? So years later, as an adult, like, I listened to the podcast from the actresses on there, and it came out just like how bad the showrunners and producers were. They were like chauvinistic. They tried to sexualize everything. They sexually harassed the actresses. And what's great is they've all come together. Nobody who was involved in the original who was a problematic person is coming back, and they're like, we're getting to reboot this, and it's going to be all female driven from the people who were affected by that. So I'm like, cool, maybe let's give it a redemption arc in that sense. Is it necessary? No. Could it work? Yes. But again, I think it goes back to where we bring out, there's just this flood of content out there. And again, somebody said, oh, Yellowstone, lightning struck. Yeah, give us 3 prequels and a sequel, and then let's do something with oil in Texas. Like, kudos to him. He owns a ranch now, whatever. But I'm like, do we really need all of that? Are there not better stories to be told?
They're all the same story.
Yeah, recycling machine
and different eras. So, but like you said, Jay, I think you're right in that, and we'll get to you in a second, Chris. Sorry, I think the idea is like they do things like, hey, this worked. Let's beat the shit out of it and keep making money on it until it doesn't work. So, I don't know. Chris, sorry.
I can't believe you're dogging out Yellowstone. We're not going to talk about the last season. We're going to pretend the last season didn't happen, didn't need to happen.
I'm not going to talk about it at all.
And my thing was, Chris, I wasn't dogging out Yellowstone. Again, I ended up thoroughly enjoying Yellowstone. And even with what they did the last season, we're not going to get into the story of the back and forth with the actors and the producer, whatever. It completed itself as a whole. It may not have been the way you wanted it or I wanted it to complete, but there, again, is no need for 3 prequels and a potential spinoff. Like, you finished Yellowstone, let it be. But instead, they're like, oh, we had to finish it because a core actor is gone, and we're going to end it in a shitty way, but we still want to make the money off the people for that subscription.
So I didn't hate what 1883 was the westward expansion one. I didn't hate that one, just because I always find like westward expansion like very interesting. And there's not a whole lot of TV that focuses on that. So I was like, if I could mute all the swearing, I could really teach kids westward expansion through this show. And just, there'd be little clips, very little clips I could actually show in a classroom. I didn't really dig the Harrison Ford one that's currently on its second, 1923, I think. I mean, good for Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford for still working at their ages. I guess not everybody can be animated by Marvel. But like, I don't know how Taylor Sheridan does it. I liked Landman more than I thought I was going to, because I'm like, Texas oil, no one cares. And then I watched it and I'm listening to this dialogue and I was like, the stuff that he has coming out of Billy Bob Thornton's mouth is wild. Like, I'm just like, you wrote that? Like, that came into your brain through a keyboard, past everyone, and just said right to air. Like, wow. So yeah, it's certainly, yeah, not everything is great. I know he also does like Mayor of Kingstown and the Tulsa King. There you go.
Tulsa King, yeah.
He does quite
Tulsa King has Stallone in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's one that I actually watched, and I didn't even know he was involved with it first. So. I
won't watch it just because of that,
because of Stallone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's sometimes I'm like, nope, pass. But Landman, I'm very much waiting for season 2, because I was like, Billy Bob just eats in that show. He's so good.
Tiger King is greater than Tulsa King. I'm never going to financially recover.
Here's a question from our guy, Zach.
Oh, Zach, don't get me started on. So my daughter was running around yelling. One of her YouTubers was like, John Cena. And I was like, let's talk about John Cena. And I had her watch the matches and all of that. And she was like, who is that? I'm like, that is John Cena. She's like, I don't get it. And I was like, okay, cool. So TikTok has got me rehooked back into WWE. So I watch way more of it than I probably should. But yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't count. Somebody has to write it and script it and hit somebody else with the chair and do pay-per-views and do the whole thing. Like, it's, yeah, absolutely. Give them credit where credit's due.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I think that, especially when I used to watch it with my brother when I was a kid, it was one of those, you always knew, like, okay, this isn't real. There's a storyline. There's an arc that's coming to each season of it or whatever. And then especially growing up and seeing how many people left, or I don't want to say left, but, aged out of WWE. And we've seen The Rock and John Cena and all those other people become, Batista become, more movie actors versus just doing the WWE thing. But I think when you have essentially a crew of actors and actresses, just because, yes, they are portraying a sport with a fictional storyline. Yeah, it's a series.
And the
Yeah, this
Attitude Era fell when I was in high school, so that was appointment viewing because Monday Night Raw, you would stay up late and bounce between WWE and WCW, WWF at that point, and then that was the topic of conversation on Tuesday. So there's your appointment viewing.
So Victor's point here about there's a wrestling fan. Wrestling shows are soap operas with people beating each other up with chairs, and he's a wrestling fan, so I cannot disagree. So yeah,
But a soap opera can still be a series. So
true. There's a Twitch channel played ECW nonstop. I'm torturing my wife with it. I pulled that comment up without reading it, so let's. Maybe I should have been a little more. Okay, so we have the idea of sequels, spinoffs, all that jazz. So I actually have one more question here. What is a show that you're looking forward to having a new season of that you're not sure if it's going to, but you're hopeful that it does? Sorry, I didn't drop this in our pre-show chat about this. So
no, I mean, I've got one, but I'm so conflicted over it now, and I know that we're only getting one more season, and we should only be getting that season because of recent current events. Yeah. So for me, it's the Sandman. I really enjoyed that first season. I was like, oh yeah, I want the second one. They said, yeah, we're getting a second one, and then all that shit came to light, and I was like,
So here's the plus side with that, though, Jay. Apparently, it's done. Like season 2 is in the can, so I don't think that Netflix is going to do like Amazon did to Good Omens and just cut it down to like an hour and a half movie and really butcher it. I think Sandman's in the can. They might just pull Gaiman's name off of it, like Warner Brothers does with Harry Potter. And I know that's not a perfect solution, and I still can't reconcile that. Like the dude who brought me, like. Yeah, the first season was amazing. Like, whoa. But it's so hard to reconcile, like, Neil Gaiman, like, that wrote Coraline, that wrote the Graveyard Book, that wrote, like, all of this fantastic stuff. Like, why can you just not be a good human? Like, why can't you be like Mr. Rogers and not be all gropey, touchy-feely? Like, it's not that hard. Hands and feet to yourself.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Even if they take his name off, like, I just feel dirty. Like, I don't want any single residual for me viewing it going back to that human being. So
there's another show just in that same vein too, and it's Good Omens. Good Omens was great. First 2 seasons were awesome, but they canceled it because of the stuff with Gaiman, and I don't disagree with them. I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's a bummer because the 2 main actors are just stellar to watch work with.
Not only that, they're both really great allies of marginalized folks as well. So yeah, that's a real bummer that's not gonna. And they were so good in that show. So yeah, that is. I agree with you both. I think the Sandman, the first season was great. The guy they got to play the Sandman, I don't know who the fuck that guy was and where the hell he came from, but he was great at it. I'm a little bummed on that one. Any others you're looking forward to, Chris? Any things that you could think of that you'd really like to see another season of?
There's shows that have not been renewed yet that I would be a little sad if they left them the way they are. School Spirits I got hooked on, and I know I'm not a teenage girl, so I'm not the demographic, but season 2 ended with such a cliffhanger, and no one's announced if there's a 3, and I'm like, wow, why did you do that? No, don't be that person. That's a big one. But yeah, it stinks to, and usually they make an announcement halfway through the season. Oh, we're not coming back for season 2. Then I just started watching season 1. I'm like, I can't get it. Oh, don't get me started. Exactly. Look, I love The Last of Us, and these 2 have heard me emotionally prepare for season 2. I don't know. I should just like get a BetterHelp subscription now because season 2 is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Now the difference is that's not going away. Like HBO is seasons 2, 3, and 4 are all based on the second game, so we're good for a while there. But it's just like knowing there might be anything after season 4 because Druckmann doesn't know if he's doing a 3rd game. That hurts.
Yeah, I can't see them not doing those 3 seasons just because of how successful the first season was, and just all the actors are all in on it too, which matters, and they're all, from what we can gather, pretty decent human beings. But Pedro Pascal especially is a good guy, so hopefully that sticks around. I'm going to throw one that I'm pretty sure Chris has watched. I really, really hope they continue a new season of Love, Death, and Robots, because that fucking show is just a fabulous show. Great show. I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully they make another season of it. I just don't know how they don't. Like, it gets great reviews, and all the episodes are their only sort of standalone options that you watch, and they're just super good. I'm really hoping that they do more of that. There's a couple others. Zach mentioned that there's a new season of Andor being released. I still haven't seen the first season. Have you guys seen Andor? I'm not a big Star Wars person, so
it starts off slow. It starts off a little slow, and you're going to be like, "What the hell?" But by the halfway point, it cascades in, and you're just like, "Whoa!" It just is a little slow. Like, Disney tried to stretch it for content, and it certainly was a little slower than it should have been.
Yeah, so he also, Daniel said that there might be an animated series, Tales of the Jedi, but the movies all seem to be halted. Is that just because it's not making money? Like, I don't know why that would be. Like, Star Wars seems to be like, it'd be something sort of a cash cow that you could keep just cashing in,
The games are great. The series, I think they're waiting to see how well the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie does. But also, I think the rumor is Kathleen Kennedy is done at the end of the year, and so they have to find her successor. I hope it's Favreau and Dave Filoni, because I feel like Dave Filoni is a living Star Wars nerd at this point. So I think they're just waiting on that.
Yeah, I would like to shout one out that isn't being said. Is it? Oh, the 3-body problem is great. I hope they do more of that. Yeah. I'm about halfway through the book and about halfway through the first season, so I need to kind of finish both up. So there is one that I hope happens. This has all been rumor and conjecture, but and I don't know if you'd heard this, Chris. Probably you have. But Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting of Hill House, Fall of the House of Usher, did a great adaptation of Gerald's Game from Stephen King, is in theory supposed to be making a Dark Tower TV series for Prime. The Dark Tower series is my second favorite book series I've ever read, and I really, really hope they do that. So that is something, like, again, that is kind of out in ether, but not confirmed.
I'm currently reading the short story for The Life of Chuck, because that movie's coming. If anybody can handle the Dark Tower in a long format, it's Flanagan. I question. Like, if you're like Mike Flanagan is directing the video adaptation of the Yellow Pages. Sign me the hell up. Get me some popcorn. That man, especially after Fall of the House of Usher, I was like, whoa.
Also, I don't know, and I'm gonna jump to a movie thing super quick with this. There was he did the sequel, basically the sequel to The Shining. What the fuck was that?
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep. That was a fucking superb mix of The Shining, like a sequel. Like, he did all this shit in a movie that I just didn't think was possible. And I'd watch anything Rebecca Ferguson is in, just period, just because she's just a phenomenal actress. So.
Sorry about the comment.
Yes,
Dr. Sleep was one of those movies. Normally, my wife puts up with the stupid crap I put on TV, and she just watches her phone, so she doesn't have to deal with it. But she got, like, Dr. Sleep was so good, the phone went down, and she was hooked, and it was long, but she was like, that didn't feel long. That was so good. Was that a book? And I was like, yeah, King wrote the book. There's some changes, but I have no qualms with how it worked out.
Yeah. There might be a movie for the Fall of House of Usher. Man, I'm super happy about that. One of the guys who's a writer for that is an author I really like named John Scalzi. who wrote Old Man's War, which if you haven't read Old Man's War, that book is fucking phenomenal. I hope they make that into a movie someday. So yeah, I'm really happy about that.
The stories with the 3 little robots are my wife's favorite.
Those are all written by Scalzi. Those are his stories.
She loves those. She will put up with all the crap I make her sit through as long as we can watch one of the 3 robots episodes. She laughs like a lunatic.
I want to piggyback on that. There's another animated series. I actually canceled my Prime subscription because fuck Bezos, but there is a series in there called Secret Level, which if you have not seen it, it is based on video games and board games. And the episodes are all individual and all specific. And goddamn, the D&D one just floored me. Like all of them were so good. I was, yeah. Did you guys see that?
I don't rock D&D like that. And I was like, this is really good. And then I watched the Pac-Man episode and I was like, what in the hell did I just watch?
Yeah. Did you see that one, Jay?
I haven't gotten through all of it yet, but I did start it, and I agree. Like I felt like it was very well done, but I'm conflicted with Bezos as well. So
yeah, that's a problem. But yeah. All right, guys. Anything else you want to talk about TV wise? Anything? Drop it like it's hot. Let's go. All right. Let's see where we're all talked out. Anyway, I just want to thank you guys again for popping on here with me with TV. Every month is going to be a different content avenue. So, TV, I started with books. We did a preview with Bo Johnson last month on Speakeasy Conversation Talk Books, but that was kind of brief because we were promoting his book. I love traversing all these little topics, and thanks for throwing your ideas here to discuss and just blabbing with me for an hour and a half. Really appreciate it.
absolutely, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks, sir.
Yep. So everybody, the next episode will be April 8th at 9 p.m. We do not have a topic just yet, but that's going to be the fun of it. We're just going to you'll know when we know. So anyway, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Everybody take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.